And we are hopefully going to be able to automate all of this online for you so that there'll be a portal, you can log in, everything will be nicely organized with regards to the applications we've received, and you can use that to help coordinate the work and provide feedback and fill out any scoring that we have there. So with that, I will turn it over to Jen. I will say up front, we do have some members of the public online with us, so welcome to those. We are recording this and we will put it online after the meeting is ended for the public to be able to view. If you are a member of the public, we just ask that you keep your lines muted and listen in, as this is intended for an educational opportunity for our committee members to ask questions about the scoring process. All right, Jen, go right ahead.
Perfect. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. I'll just jump right on into it. As Stephanie said, just kind of give you guys a general overview of where we're at in the process. So as of this morning, for your committee for negative economic impact, there were about 355 in draft status. And what that means is folks went in and either just went ahead and registered to kind of see what the application looked like. Some of them actually had some information in there and they just saved it, but they were still in draft status, so they had not submitted. 12 of them have actually submitted for negative economic impact, and we will begin to push those onto the website once they all get into a point where they're a finalized submission. Some of them still had information that were missing in there, so our team will have to come through those and kick those back and then get those updated to then put on the website. And just to give you an idea of what the other committees kind of look like right now, for water sewer infrastructure, we have 236 in draft status, 3 of those being submitted, or 3 submitted, and then broadband infrastructure had 98 in draft status and then 2 submitted. Right now, we're awaiting the publication of some FAQs regarding each category that will provide additional clarity. And then, like I said, we'll start to add the submitted applications online. Those will just be little blurbs where you will see the proposal name, the applicant's name, their location, the status. The reason we put that up there is because right now they'll go in as submitted, and then once awards are made, you'll be able to see those who were awarded as well on the website, the amount requested, and then we'll put amount awarded, once they've been awarded, but then the project description and then a map attachment. If they have a map, we can put it up, on all the categories, but specifically for broadband. Overall expectations for the review process, obviously we want to make sure that you read through the proposals prior to the grant review, just before you actually start critiquing them. Starting early, it may take a little bit longer than you anticipate just to navigate, the portal and things like that. Keep the proposals and scores confidential. Thoroughly understand the information requested in the proposal and assess each proposal's strength and weakness. So just step 1, I'm sure many of you have already done this already because we've gotten questions about the interim final rule and FAQs, but if you haven't already, make sure you kind of read through the interim final rule so we know what to expect, and the FAQs that Treasury has on their website. It's also on our website. We kind of try to keep everything on our website too, so you have a one-stop shop accessing the portal and all the Treasury documents too. So you can find those there rather than kind of going back and forth. Becoming familiar with the goals of Georgia's priorities for your committee. And then we're going to have a quick guide for each committee. So for negative economic impact, you guys will be tasked probably with the largest portion of all these grants, and you can kind of just see that from how many were in draft status so far. Lots of different types of proposals. So we'll have a quick guide for you that has some information from the interim final review, some FAQs, and some things to help guide you as you score. The requirements of the proposal and reporting requirements, the scoring criteria, and point allocations. For step 2, complete an initial read-through of each applicant's proposal. You don't have to score them at this time, kind of went through that. Then use the initial read-through of the proposals to get a sense of what the proposals are about and how they're organized. Then reread each proposal and then start scoring. Make sure to record proposal strengths and weaknesses on the review form, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like near the end of the slide presentation. And then provide helpful comments for the applicant. This helps not only just show, if you gave them a 5 on something, not only why you scored them that way, but it's very helpful as a grant writer to see how you could improve. And so in a traditional grant setting, they would provide, a mix of like reviewer comments, but at least showing them, in the comment section, how they could improve on that next time is very helpful for them. just some general rules and tips. Everyone is going to score differently, and that's okay. It's typical. Just make sure that your scores are consistent. So the biggest thing is, especially when you're kind of reading through, when I do a grant review, I'll kind of read a couple of them too, just to kind of get a baseline, because sometimes you might start out, generally more easy on some of them, and then maybe, get a little bit more, in depth as you go, or vice versa. You can either start out a little bit more hard and then kind of, whatever. So whatever you do, you might want to, just make sure you set your consistent level. So if they're missing something in the project design and implementation, and you get to one, 2 grants down, just making sure that you're doing the same, you're docking them the same amount of points as you would on, application A as you would on application B, just to ensure that consistency, so that you're not kind of all over the place, because you do end up, starting at least one way, and then as you read them, you might change that a little bit. So just by starting with the initial review of a couple of grant applications, just to get that baseline, that's very helpful. Only score a proposal based on the information provided, so avoiding assumptions. Score proposals against the criteria set forth by the interim final rule, not against other grant programs or other applications. And then no fractions or decimals, please. You can deduct points for missing information. Just make sure that your score is primarily based on the clarity of their responses, right? So they may be missing something, and we'll get to a discussion of the scoring criteria again, just to review that for you guys. If they're missing information, you obviously will deduct points on there, but you want to see also what they have actually hit in the responses to give them as much points as you can. Just having an answer to each question in the application requirement doesn't justify a high score or score in general. So they have to, make sure they're hitting, again, those points that we outlined in the scoring criteria. The proposal should make a strong case for funding and show compelling need. If a proposal includes more than one project, it's possible that one or more, but not all projects, will be funded based on the parameters of the project. So you guys as committee members have discretion to recommend projects within a proposal without funding the entire proposal. So you may see something in there that, something as a general project might look great. They have a couple of subawards in there, and one might not sound feasible. One might not have the same capabilities and competencies or track record, or something like that. And so you have discretion to be able to pull those out and recommend, funding the project, maybe minus a project within that proposal. Proposals should reflect guidance outlined in the interim final rule. Obviously, be reasonable, reflect best practices, demonstrate effective collaboration, effectively address the needs of the community or industry. You're going to have a range of scores. A perfect score of 100 or 10 points in each category are pretty rare. So that would just mean that there's no weaknesses whatsoever in the proposal or in each category. And then same kind of thing, a score of 0 is rare. The exception to that's going to be your match funds if they don't have any match funds. But in general, if you put a 0, that just means that there's no strengths at all in that section. If you do feel like a score of 100 or 0 are warranted, so a 0 to 10 on that scale, just please make sure you document your justifications. Okay, before I go into the life cycle and the portal, I just want to stop for a second and see if there's any questions so far about the process or anything else.
Commissioner Atwood, you have a question? Oh, and you're muted, sir.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I know we're only supposed to be evaluating according to the proposals, which is fine. I've already had a couple of entities reach out wanting to meet with me. I have refused to meet thus far till I got some guidance on what the proper thing to do was. And so I'm asking that question. I don't mind listening to anyone, that's fine. But I, number one, didn't think it was right for just me meeting and not meeting with the whole committee. And number two, some meeting with me and others maybe not. So I didn't know if we had thought through that process or what the guidance was.
Yeah, so in general, so as we say in the July 15th, we're kind of treating it like a general RFP process. So once it's kicked off, we have asked people to not talk about proposals, and kind of give it anything that would give advice on that general proposal. I think it's totally great. I mean, and we should be, pushing it out there, letting folks know about the grant opportunities, and that's totally fine. But if it's anything where that, you're giving advice on anything like that, I think that's when we all agreed, in the July 15th one, that we kind of step back from that. They can reach out to us if they have questions too.
I think that was essentially folks that are looking to be applying for these and wanted to put their case forward. So just want to be fair to everybody.
Yeah, great question.
Thanks.
And we will have built into the time frame and opportunities if the committee wants to have folks come in to discuss their proposals to the full committee. We've built that into the process as well. So they would still have an opportunity to present to the whole committee.
Good. That's great. Thank you.
Dr. Dorfman?
Yeah, I've got a question. I'm a little worried about the documentation and the talk of providing feedback to the people that are applying for grants. I mean, normally that's nice to be nice to people that are writing grants, but if even a fraction of the people that have already registered actually submit, if we have 100 applications and you expect us to give 10 scores for each one, you're asking for us to do 1,000 numbers. And there's some pretty busy people on this committee. I don't see that we're going to have time to write detailed, constructive comments on how the people could do better next time. So I'm just wondering, anything we can do to streamline it? And then also sort of a second thing, I know you haven't finished explaining the process, but is there going to be a point where people discuss these, or so it's not just going to be the scores without ever having discussion? Okay, thank you.
Were you going to say something, Stephanie? Or you want me to take it?
Nope, go
Okay.
ahead then.
Okay. No, so, and I say that, so because everything that we do at OPB is obviously subject to open records, the folks can request their comments and they can see, they may want to know why they scored, a 5, 6, or whatever. And so some general comment, that's what we're asking for. You don't have to write, a paragraph on there, but a general comment, missing information on project design, how are you going to do X, Y, and Z, or what, whatever. Because just a number without even a sentence of an explanation may not, it's great for them to be able to see that to help them later, but it's for us to show folks, what they scored. It would be hard to do that without some sentence, of why you scored them a 2 and someone else submitted the same project and they maybe got an 8 on that particular section.
If we might be able to write one comment per proposal, or if we all just evaluated a subset of the proposals, then we would have time to write stuff. But if I'm looking at 100 applications, there's no way I'm writing 1,000 even brief sentences.
Okay, well, we can take that into consideration. If y'all want to scratch the comments, then we'll just we can figure out something else.
I mean, it's not a question of wanting to, I just don't think it's going to be realistic.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on, again, the volume of everything. And if we get to that point, I mean, that's why we're doing this with you guys. You guys as the committee, we're taking your feedback. And if y'all don't think it's feasible, then we'll do that. We just got to figure out some other way, whether it's some other way just to let folks know why they scored a 2 on the same project that maybe got funded and they had some kind of identical, project design or capabilities. We have 2 companies that have the exact same competencies and capabilities. One scores a 1 and the other scores a 9. And they look identical on the onset, that's just the type of thing we're trying to avoid. But again,
yeah, but if they're really identical, they won't get scores that different.
Well, I think, Jen, one of the things that we've talked about in the July 15th meeting is that we just don't know yet what we're going to get. That we could end up with 30 applications, we could end up with 1,000. And certainly this committee is going to have the widest breadth of types of applications that we're going to get in. And, we continue to, we know you guys are going to need some flexibility in the process. And so we're here to try to help you guys manage the workload. I think one of the things that will be helpful is Jen's group will give all of these, every single one of these applications, the first review. So we could always talk about as a committee if it would help you guys to break them down into, let's say, service areas, or, if these are focusing on housing and another are focusing on food programs, et cetera, the various kinds of assistance, perhaps breaking it down into like further subcommittees or taking them in chunks that way could help you guys manage the workload. And I think we'll just know more about that as we actually start seeing what officially comes in Jen's folks review it.
Yeah, and they're gonna, the whole thing's, you know, super flexible. It's, I mean, we've kind of kept it that way from the beginning. So, I mean, we have the flexibility to kind of, you know, change things and go with the flow. So we'll just, I guess, see how many we have and what is the best way to proceed that helps you guys feel the volume of everything, you know, and then capture those scores too. And then you'll see too, when I get to the portal and kind of how that works too, you'll kind of see, and we can, you know, bounce some ideas back and forth about, you know, what would be the easiest way for you guys to handle it.
Representative Bonner? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say, and to your, yes, so you will have the individual scores, and then you guys will do the collaboration session together. And that's when, you know, Stephanie was talking about bringing in applicants, you know, to do applicant interviews and bringing them in if you have other questions. So you'll have an individual scoring time, and then you'll have a collaboration session to kind of discuss, you know, strengths and weaknesses and things like that too.
Hey, thank you. I was just gonna kind of follow up question. Is there any requirement that we provide feedback? I mean, I think, you know, some things, you know, missing information is one thing, but kind of the nuances of why, you know, I did not score their particular project high or low, you know, it may not necessarily be all that impactful, but is there any requirement to provide feedback on our part, or simply we just have the ability to score it?
You have the ability to do both. It's just general best practices for grants to do that. But again, if it's something where you guys don't think it's feasible, then we can look at that and kind of come up with some other way of doing, and that would be better for you guys.
Yeah, it may be worthwhile setting some general criteria. I mean, again, if there's information missing, that's kind of an automatic, right? I mean, but if it gets into, again, more of, you know, I'd love to say I know everything, but if it came down to my lack of understanding of a project, you know, versus just simply missing information, I think that definitely matters.
Yeah, we'll take that feedback for sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, gonna keep going. Okay. This is just a general image of just kind of how the process will flow. There we go. As Stephanie mentioned, you guys will have access to the applications and do the whole review process via the Georgia Grants portal now, as opposed to paper or like an Adobe Sign form. All reviewers will need to register in the Georgia Grants portal, and I've put TBD because the portal is still being developed right now. So we don't want you guys to go in and register just yet, because you really want to that view that we are looking to have, which you'll see in just a second. So we're just going to ask that you hold off. We'll send, you know, some email communications, and we'll help facilitate registrations, provide technical assistance to you guys just to make sure that you guys get in with no issues. This is a general overview of kind of what you'll see when you get in there. You'll see 3 different categories: pending review, in progress, and initial review complete. And I apologize, there are some typing errors in here. This came from our developer. Real quick, they just put this together for us. When you first go in, you'll see a rundown of all of the grants that are sitting there waiting for you, and those will all say pending review as long as you haven't, you know, done anything with them. Then once you go in, you can start working on them. You can save your work as you go, so they don't all have to be done in one sitting. But as you go in and start to save those, then that will change to in progress. And then as you continue that and actually complete that first round, it'll change to initial review complete. At all times in here, everything is editable. So editable, can't talk. In here, nothing gets locked down. So even if you, a lot of times in the grant process, like you might transpose something, you might have, you know, if you're making notes, you might have a 7 written down and a 6 for the next category, and you flip them, you know, in there, and you don't realize it until you've submitted it. That's okay. It's not locked down. You just go back in and edit it and change it, and then it will update for you. I think you guys have already seen this. This is just the grants portal, and what you will see, you'll have the grant opportunities and the committee evaluation. And again, yeah, this will be changed to the correct spelling. So here, application review list. This is what I was talking about. So once you go in, you'll see pending review. That's something that you haven't even gone in yet. In progress means you've gone in, done something with it, and at least saved a score or 2 or whatever. And then once you submitted that, it'll change to initial review complete. And then after that initial review is complete, that's when you'll do the collaboration session. And then once the collaboration session is done, I know we have a tentative schedule which may end up getting pushed back depending on the volume of awards. But once that final cutoff of the collection of final scores is established, then everything will be locked down in the system and then go to a submitted status. So at that point, you would not be able to go in and change it unless you contacted us to have our folks open it back up. You don't have to squint too hard because we're going to go over all these anyway. I just wanted you to see kind of what it looks like in the system. This will be the reviewer check sheet. You'll have each of the categories here and your scores here. And then you could go over to click save. And then if you wanted to do all in one sitting, you would just click the initial review complete. So I showed you, so these are the individual ones and these are all of them broken down. So for the description of the issue, we've come over these before. Just want to remind you guys of these. You're going to look at if the applicant defines the specific problem they seek to address and how it was impacted by COVID-19. Does the applicant describe the process used to assess, analyze, or determine the nature of the problem and explain any gaps in resources or limitations in funding without the COVID-19 or ARPA funding? Does the applicant identify the geographic boundaries of the proposed jurisdictions, communities, and the zip codes, as well as the population size and demographic makeup of the population of both the overall jurisdiction and the communities where the project is proposed? And all these different committees will have, varying answers for this, but, for negative economic impact, you're looking at what is the makeup of the proposed, the target population and the community that it impacts. For project design and implementation, does the applicant identify the program objectives and describe the vision for the target population, specifically how this vision will address the problems identified in the description of the issue section and the broader impact to communities, jurisdictions, or industries? Is each objective measurable and identify strategies to achieve the objectives? Does the applicant include a comprehensive timeline? This should be an attachment, but they can also spell this out in a narrative that identifies milestones, numerically lists deliverables, and indicates who is responsible for each activity. And so just to clarify their attachment will be required. So if they're missing that, our team will come through that, kick it back to them and request that they attach that document. So you guys don't have to worry about that. We just put that in there. So that'll be like an automatic check if they have that in there, just combing it through to make sure that they've identified the milestones and things like that. Does the applicant propose to build a broadband network owned or operated? That's just for broadband, so we'll skip that since we're on negative economic impact. Okay, capabilities and competencies. Does the applicant demonstrate their capabilities to implement the project and the competencies of the staff assigned to the project to include the financial management of funding? Does the applicant detail the level of support for the project, as well as the expertise of the individuals who will be responsible for managing the project? There's also a section in the application where they can attach letters of support if they would like to do that as well. And then you'll be able to see all of their attachments in the portal. Does the application indicate how they will monitor strategy implementation and achievement of objectives? Does the applicant demonstrate their ability to manage and monitor any subawards? Does the applicant indicate how it will govern changes or modifications to the strategy and ensure project and fiscal accountability? Does the applicant identify a plan for collecting, collating, and submitting timely performance data? Performance measures, plans for collecting the data. Does the applicant describe the process for measuring project performance, identify who will collect the data, who is responsible for performance measurement, and how the information will be used to guide and assess the program? Does the applicant demonstrate understanding of performance data to be collected and reported? Does the applicant identify the criteria that will determine how and if the objectives have been successfully met, and one or more specific measures or outcomes and the data sources that will be used to determine whether the outcome was accomplished? The budget, did the applicant submit a budget that is complete, reasonable, cost-effective, and allowable? And just so you guys know, they'll for folks that have multiple projects, wrapped up underneath one primary applicant, they can submit a total overall budget, and then there's a budget narrative section where they can break it down by subrecipient at that level, and provide a lot more detail in that budget narrative piece that would wrap back around to the cost that they're requesting. The match funds, does the applicant have match funds? Obviously, the more funding the applicant has, the more points they will receive. As an example, an applicant with no match could receive 0, an applicant with 10% could receive 2 points, et cetera, just depending on how you choose to score them. Are there any questions, Stephanie? I can't see since I have the PowerPoint up.
Just about the application review date. So I had just noted in the chat that September 8th through the 22nd is what we have kind of set aside for committee members to be reviewing proposals independently, and then we would regather that week of September 27th to do our collaboration session.
Perfect. So just for the next steps, we're going to wait those updated FAQs. You guys will register for the portal account when that is open. And again, you'll have email communications from me with specific committee guide sheets and more information just to kind of keep you up to date with where we are. The guides that we're going to put together for you guys will have a list of, information from the interim final review, any changes that may happen between now and then with, further Treasury guidance, some samples of eligible projects that Treasury has put forward and things like that, just to kind of assist you guys in your review process. We'll provide follow-up instructions about 1 week prior to the individual reviews, and then tentatively set collaboration sessions based on the volume of awards. Again, we've kind of tried to keep our process as flexible as possible just to allow for a higher volume of awards. So we'll keep you posted on those dates. And we'll open up for questions, but before I do, I just wanted to, I know we have some members of the public on here that may have questions specifically for each of these categories. And so we've kind of broken it down just because we're fielding a high volume of calls and emails at this time. So we put our email addresses up. For broadband and infrastructure, it'll be Jennifer Wade. For water and sewer, that'll be Jasmine Lewis. And for negative economic impact, they can contact Samir Anderson.
And Commissioner Atwood, do you have a question?
Yeah, so if I understood you right, we'll have essentially 2 weeks to get this completed, September 8th to the 27th. Did I hear that correctly?
Tentatively, unless, if it's a lot, just like we were talking with Dr. Dorfman, if it's a lot, we have flexibility to extend that.
Thanks.
Yes, Representative Smyrie.
Yes, I've been asked so many questions, and I'm going to call y'all offline, but one I did want to ask today, as it relates to the process, and as the application comes in, are we as commissioners delineate our responsibility versus the Office of Planning and Budget? Do we work in conjunction with OPB, or do we as quote unquote commissioners, do we go like I'm on a negative impact? Do I go on the website and categorically go and score all of these projects? What's the process there? In other words, how do we determine? I'm like Mr. Dorfman, how do we as commissioners, how do we, from a methodology standpoint, do we absolutely score on all of these projects? Is that my understanding? What?
Yeah, so for us, once an application comes in, once it's submitted, our team is going to comb through them for eligibility, missing information, kind of scrub them down to make sure that anything that's turned over to the committee, once it goes into your queue in the portal, that is a completed eligible application at that point. Then, yeah, and so we're not scoring anything, which is why, we're able to kind of, field the calls from folks that are kind of proposing projects to see where they would fit and things like that. We're not scoring anything. We're just kind of scrubbing them just to make sure they're eligible and then move them along to you guys. Once we do our first initial review and we move them into that portal, then you will start to see them when we release them as your in progress applications. So you guys will be the scorer.
Well, that's very, very helpful that you all will be doing the scrubbing, and once it hits out, once it hits the portal, then it's clean and ready for us to evaluate.
Yes, sir.
And my second part of my question is that once you do that, the respective committees will I be able to sit down with all of our committee, like the negative impact, will we ever get together as a committee? Because it's going to be three categories, right? So the broadband and the water and sewage, and then the negative impact. Will we meet categorically individually to go over our package together as a subcommittee of the commission? What's the process there?
Yeah, so initially, in that portal, you guys are going to score everything individually. In that first 2-week process that we have, that we defined out, I think it was September 18th, I think you said, Stephanie? I don't have it in front of me, sorry. So
yeah, the 8th through essentially the 27th.
Okay, thank you. So you guys will individually score during that time. Then you will come together for a collaboration session where you can discuss strengths and weaknesses. You can kind of compare your notes on different projects. You can at that time, if you want to, you can go back in and change your scores. You can adjust. You can leave the same if you feel confident in your scoring. But you guys can do that. And then Stephanie said you guys have a window where you can call in applicants as well, so they can answer questions if you need more things addressed. So you start with individuals, and then you move to a collaborative environment.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. I appreciate that, because this is a first-time process, and we're kind of in uncharted waters here when you start talking about a commission and the allocation of funding, and I'm just so delighted both our chairman of both of our respective appropriations committee and as a member of the House Appropriation Committee, I just needed this clarification, because as I said, we are in uncharted waters when it comes to something of this magnitude, and then the public is, we're trying to, get the public's buy-in, and at the same time be fiscally responsible as we, spend the taxpayers' dollars. So that's my rationale and reason. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Atwood, did you have a follow-up question?
No, I just failed miserably in taking my hand down. So.
You just make me remind me to lower my hand. I've had my time. I saw Josh hand was up at one time, but he didn't.
Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, of course, all of you have my number, you have my email address. If anything comes up, if you have, ideas that could, make your lives easier, feel free to give me a call. We can talk through it. And I mean, we're here to make it as easy as we can for you guys. And again, just be fiscally responsible with everything. So whatever we can do, just let us know. If you think of any other questions as a follow-up, let me know. But other than that, that's all I have. And I thank you guys so much. Thank you for your flexibility.
One other thing, Jen, you gave the names out for those respective committees. Could you send that out and let me know, like, who my person is for negative impact that I can call and speak to directly? I sure would appreciate it.
Of course.
Because I've been calling you, you know that.
And that's fine. That's
okay.
Fine. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.